Thank you for tuning in to RTM Nation Online, where we believe that you will receive the abundance of peace, prosperity, security, stability, health, healing, and truth. If you would like to learn more about the ministry, click the link below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now let's get into the message.
The guys were asking me as I came in, they said, hey, you know, do you have any Smith stories today? And I told them, I said, well, I had one kind of on tap, but then I realized that it may not be a good one to share because Greta may not appreciate it very much. Plus, I feel as if every woman would be on her side. So that's not a good one for me to share. But I want to show you a picture. As you know, Valentine's Day just went by. And so Greta and I went and we did one of those couples paint things. And so this is the picture that we made. G and B, Greta and Benjamin. So as you can see, we're now artistes. The other thing I want to share with you really quick is, unless leadership tells me otherwise, after service, at least the next Sunday, maybe the next 2 Sundays, if you are wanting some support with your SMART goals, Greta and myself and other members of leadership who are available will be here to assist you with those SMART goals. Everyone remember what SMART goals are? Okay. All right. Let's jump in here. So, where are we so far in our development on our uncommon common sense? Well, we know that the term we've created, uncommon common sense, that's our term. We made that term. I created that term. And it means just a natural sense that recognizes that God has an influence in this earth. It recognizes that there is a God factor. But what do we mean? What is God factor? We've put some context around that term before. And what we said is that it kind of recognizes that, yeah, God has other controls that we may not see or we may not know. So we've loosely kind of defined it. But what do we really mean when we say God factor? Turn to Jeremiah chapter 32, starting in verse 24 in the Message Bible. When we say God factor, what is it that we mean? This sense that recognizes that God has an influence on the world around us. Starting in verse 24, Message Bible, Jeremiah is talking, oh, look at the siege ramps already set in place to take the city. Just a little context here. The Babylonians are coming forward and moving and getting ready to put the children of Israel under their reign. Oh, look at the siege ramps already set in place to take the city. Killing and starvation and disease are on our doorsteps. The Babylonians are attacking. The word you spoke is coming to pass. It's daily news. And yet you, God, the master, even though it's certain that the city will be turned over to the Babylonians, also told me, buy a field, pay for it in cash, and make sure there are witnesses. I think that's interesting. Jeremiah is like, you got these people getting ready to come and take us over, and you know you done told me to go out and do some stuff, and people know I done did it because you told me I was going to do it. Now you're going to make me look silly. You told me to go out and buy a field and pay with it for cash, and now you're going to have these people come and take us over. Really, God? Verse 26, though. Then God's message came to Jeremiah. Read 27 with me. Stay alert. I am God, the God of every living thing. I know, I junked that all up. Pastor, how you going to tell me to read behind you and you can't even read, brother? One more time. I'll do better this time. Y'all ready? Let's go. Stay alert. I am God, the God of everything living. Is there anything I can't do? Pastor, you're so good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It says, is there anything I can't do? That is recognition of a God factor. knowing that there is nothing God can't do, knowing that God can do anything. Verse 26 and 27 in the King James of Jeremiah says, Then came the word of the Lord unto Jeremiah, saying, Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me? Perceiving that there is a God factor is knowing that God can do anything. Perceiving that there is a God factor is a knowing that there is nothing too hard for God. Not wishing there's nothing too hard, not hoping there's nothing too hard, but knowing there is nothing too hard for God. That uncommon common sense that we're talking about. It recognizes that God is almighty. He's all-knowing. He's ever-present. Thus, that kind of mindset knows that God has the final conclusion. He's the final authority. He has the final say on all situations. A person with that kind of mindset has a very interesting outlook on life. They see life clearly. They see all of the happenings and the real events in their life. They don't ignore that. But in addition to seeing what is, they recognize that God can still have influence on what they see. That kind of person knows that God is in control. That kind of person never draws conclusions based on natural events only. That kind of person recognizes that God can determine what will be in spite of what is. We're talking about a person with an uncommon common sense. That kind of person has a perception that never underestimates God's ability. His ability to do what? It never underestimates God's ability to manifest what facts, figures, and common reasoning deem to be uncommon. That kind of person has attained that place of being one who sense is uncommon. And in their reasoning, no matter what's going on in their life, that kind of person always rehearses in their mind, there's nothing my God cannot do. The question on the floor, though, that we've been dealing with is, how do we get there? How do we get this unnatural sense to be uncommon? Well, we've already said, and we know that common sense is it's a product of your learned experiences. Nobody's born with it. In other words, it comes with effort. Likewise, having your reasoning become uncommon, it comes with effort, and that effort is getting experiences with God. Go back to Jeremiah, and I want you to look at this verse in the King James Version. Notice something. It ends with the question where God says, is there anything too hard for me? We see those words, but family, there's a hidden context there. The hidden context is, Jeremiah, is there anything too hard for your God? Jeremiah, you know me. You've heard of me. You've prayed to me before. It's not just anybody who's saying this thing. Jeremiah, is there anything too hard for your God? It's personal. The only way, though, that the God of all creation, the one and only true and living God, gets to become your God is that you have to have experiences with him. You have to spend enough time with God to where your heart embraces God as yours. Turn to Isaiah 40. King James Version, verse 31. You have to embrace it. Embrace God as yours. And of course, I've said it before, but let me say it again. I cannot be experienced with God for you. That is something that you have to do for yourself. Isaiah 40. We said strongly last week, in the midst of your life journey, you got to learn to wait on God if you want to get experiences. This walk with God is a God and you thing. Not a God and your auntie and you. Not a God and your husband and you. Not God and your wife and you. This walk with God is personal. With where you got to go to get an uncommon common sense. It's a you and God thing. Isaiah 40, verse 31. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. That same verse of scripture in the Message Bible reads like this. But those who wait upon God get fresh strength. They spread their wings and soar like eagles. They run and don't get tired. They walk and don't lag behind. Walking is not a stationary posture. The posture of someone that's waiting is not a stationary posture. It's a soaring and a running and a walking. It's a doing whatever you've been designed to do, while in the process, God keeps renewing your strength and proving himself to you. That's waiting on God. That's how you get your experience with him. Now we shift into today. You said all that was kind of background, Pastor? Sort of. Sort of. Let me divide something very sharply here. I've said that I cannot be experienced with God for you. I'm getting ready to refine that statement. Look at your neighbor, say, Pastor gonna refine some things. I'm finna refine it. Now keep a watch on me. I'm gonna refine it. I'm finna refine it for you. Finna refine it. Turn to Revelation 12. Oh yeah, we finna refine that. Oh, I cannot. Your neighbor can't. Your relative can't. I cannot be experienced with God for you. I stand firm on that. Revelation 12, King James Version, verse 7. John writes, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of the brethren is cast down, which accuses them before our God day and night. If you got it, read verse 11 for me. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Look at here, family. I cannot be experienced with God for you, but I can doggone sure be an experience with God before you.
Yes, amen. Amen.
Hit me close. I cannot be experienced with God for you, but I sure enough can be an experience with God before you. In the easy to read version, verse 11 says, they defeated him by the blood sacrifice of the Lamb and by the message of God that they told people. They did not love their lives too much. They were not afraid of death. In the New Life version, verse 11 says, they had power over him and won because of the blood of the Lamb and by telling what he had done for them. They did not love their lives, but were willing to die. In the King James Version, John says, they overcame by the blood of the Lamb. In other words, they overcame by the precious blood of Christ, the blood that gave them the opportunity to be called overcomers. They overcame by that, but they did not overcome by the blood only. Yeah, they overcame by the blood, but they did not overcome by the blood only. The wonder-working power of the blood is real. It has the ability to take us and make us righteous before God, but they did not overcome by the blood of the Lamb only. They also defeated the enemy by the message of God that came out of their mouth. They also defeated the enemy by telling people about what God had done. Say this with me. There's power in a believer's testimony. That verse of scripture tells me that there is power in a believer's testimony. So many people walk around this world full of testimonies, but they stay quiet. They walk across this earth full of evidence and witness about God and his power, but they remain silent. Some have great testimonies, but will not even say. Some think their testimonies are just too small or too insignificant to even bring up. You can hear it in their voice when they belittle their experiences with God. And you know how it usually sounds to me? These are the words that usually I hear come out of their mouth before they start talking about that testimony. The words are, I am just a fill in the blank. I'm just a mom. I'm just a coach. I'm just a teacher. I'm just an usher. Who would want to hear what I got to say? I'm just a secretary. I'm just a kid. I'm just a business owner. I'm just a flight attendant. Who cares about what I have to say? I'm just a doctor. I'm just a janitor. I'm just a bus driver. I'm just a nurse. I'm just a babysitter. I'm just the person that sweeps the floor. I'm just the person that directs traffic. Who would want to hear what I got to say? Nobody wants to hear my little testimony. Stop saying that. Stop talking down on what God has done in your life. It's not about your occupation or what you do. What it's about is what God is doing with you, or what he has done with you, or what he is doing through you while you do what you do. Your testimony, no matter how big or seemingly how small, has power. And you do the world a disservice when you keep your mouth shut. You do the world a disservice when you stay quiet. Why? Because your testimony has power. It says they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of their testimony. When you remain quiet, the world suffers. Stop remaining quiet. Open your mouth and let your story testify.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let your story testify about what God has done to you, done for you. Let your mouth and your story testify what God has brought you through. Let your story testify about how God has been faithful to you. Let your story testify about how God has been true to you. Let your story testify. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of their testimony. Your testimony is a danger to the enemy. The devil hopes that your testimony never sees the light of day. It's a danger to him. It's the worst thing he could ever hear hit the street. He shudders every time he thinks you're going to open your mouth. So don't keep your mouth quiet any longer. Open your mouth and let your story come out. Testify about what God has done for you. Let your testimony, let your story, let it shake the gates of hell. Testify. Let the world know what God has done. Your testimony, if you don't stay quiet, might be a life-altering, life-changing piece of evidence that convinces someone else to keep believing God. Your testimony has power. Say this with me. My testimony, has power. And I will not, keep it locked up any longer. That's right, church. Your testimony has power. It has power. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise. Don't belittle what God has done for you. It is not I am just a. It is I am a child of the Most High God. And whatever it is God has done for me, it's good enough to tell the whole world. Why? Because I know that the blood of the Lamb is not the only thing they overcame by. They overcame by the words of a testimony out of the mouth of a believer. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. When I got the revelation that my testimony has power, when I got the revelation that my story is not insignificant, when I got the revelation that what comes out of my mouth is powerful enough to defeat the enemy, all of a sudden, my position concerning what's going on in my life became, hey, look, I said I wasn't going to tell nobody, hey, about what the Lord has done for me, but I just couldn't keep it to myself. Hey, look, I said I wasn't going to tell nobody, but I just couldn't keep it to myself about what Jesus Christ and his blood has done for me. I said I wasn't going to tell nobody about how he made me free, but I just can't keep it to myself. The blood of Jesus, it made me right before my God. And then my God called me his own. And you know what else he did after that? He took me, you know how it go. He picked me up. What did he do? He cleaned me up. He fixed me up. He turned me around. He put my feet on solid ground. He pointed me toward glory and gave me everything I needed to succeed in this life. That's what the blood of Jesus has done for me. And my God has never left me. He's always there. My God is always true. He does what he says he's going to do. I said I wasn't going to tell nobody, but I just couldn't keep it to myself. What the Lord has done for me. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb, but they also overcame by the words of the testimonies of believers who refuse to be quiet about what God has done for them. Said I wasn't going to tell nobody, but I just couldn't keep it to myself. Why can't I keep it to myself? I can't keep it to myself because my testimony might be the motivation that keeps someone else going. I can't keep it to myself. Why can't I keep it to myself? Because I realize that although I can't be experienced with God for you, I sure enough can definitely be an experience with God before you. And that experience might be just what you need to hold on. I am willing to let my experience be there for you as evidence until you get your own. I don't know about you, but that's my position. That's my position. At some point in my life, I might not think I want to tell somebody, but when I consider the power behind my testimony, I can't keep it to myself. That's my position, and I pray that that position becomes yours as well. When we're talking about the power of our testimony, the power of our testimony highlights the importance, family, of having the right relationships in life. That is one of the reasons I really hope you're taking the opportunity to work on your SMART goals in preparation for your SMART groups, because it's not just about completing goals. The purpose of SMART groups will be to allow you to foster relationships that help you succeed in this life. What do we mean to succeed in this life? Relationships that'll laugh with you through the good times and stand firm with you through a challenge. A relationship that can gently hold you to God's standard and correct you if necessary. And of utmost importance, a relationship that can encourage you through their testimony. It reads, and they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. The last part of that, though, beyond the word of their testimony, they have some other stuff. And that other stuff says, and they loved not their lives unto the death. That conveys the message that there is a people who, even in the face of death, would not keep quiet about the gospel and what it is that God has done for them. That's somebody right there on the edge. We're not talking about somebody who say, well, you know, if I don't lose my job, I'll keep testifying. Well, you know, if this person continues to love me, I'll make sure I testify. No, you don't get no more farther convicted than that. You don't have any further resolution than that. Then I will die before I stop testifying of the gospel and what the Lord has done for me. When I think of all of the things that have conviction, that type of illustration if we read that and we were to take a poll and everyone would be honest, there would still be people that would remain speechless. Consider this. And I bet you will believe that this is true. But let's take just a quick rabbit trail scenario. If we took a group of believers, let's say us, and we randomly selected people out and we pulled them to the side. And we went up to those people individually and said, hey, listen, we want you to share with everyone here what God has done for you. There will still be people, maybe many, maybe most, that would not want to speak. Would not want to speak. Afraid of being in front of people, it don't matter. If you knew that your testimony had power, if you knew that your story, if it testified, could change a life, I wonder if those individuals that we would bring up here or that you would bring in any setting, if they said that they wouldn't speak, I wonder if it would change their mind if they only knew. I wonder if they would remain speechless if they knew telling their experience would throw a lifeline to a girl thinking about suicide. That it would renew a spark in a dying marriage. That it would breathe new life into a discouraged mom. I wonder if they still would remain quiet if they only knew that the power behind their testimony would provide peace to a scared father, would give hope to a failing student, would revive the faith of a struggling believer. Would they open their mouth and speak if they knew the words of their testimony would restore a strength to a struggling drug addict, would usher a new heart into the kingdom of God, would ignite in a disciple the desire to know God a little bit more. If they only knew that the words behind their story, that their testimony of what God has done, if they only knew what it could do, would they hold their tongue? Would they remain quiet? If they only knew that their testimony would give hope to a man battling alcoholism, would lift a teenager out of depression, would show a rape victim that a happy future is possible, would stir up forgiveness in the heart of a child for his or her parent. If they knew that the words of their testimony had life-altering, life-changing power, I wonder if they would stay quiet. I wonder if they only knew. If they knew that it could change the world one life at a time, would they let their stories testify? That group of imaginary people, we can't do nothing about them, but we all are far from imaginary. We're very real. If for some reason, sitting here, anyone has apprehension, has fear, has something that's holding them back from sharing their testimony, no matter how big, no matter how small, if that is you, I pray you change. Because your testimony has power. If you would turn to Daniel chapter 4, King James Version, verse 2. Here are some relevant words for us from King Nebuchadnezzar. Words that I pray that we take to heart here. King Nebuchadnezzar says, I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the high God has wrought toward me. That should be a phrase in our heart. That we think it good to show people the things that God has done for us. That we think it good to tell people the things God has shared with us. That we think it good for us to actually tell people, hey, listen, this is what God has done for me. In the Message Bible, same chapter, but beginning at verse 1. King Nebuchadnezzar, to everyone everywhere, every race, color, and creed. This man is getting ready to tell something to somebody. And he said every race, every color, every creed. That covers everybody. When you getting ready to tell your testimony, listen, we don't discriminate. We will tell our testimony before any race, any color, any creed. Why? Because it's personal. It's what God has done for you. Peace and prosperity to all. It is my privilege to report to you the gracious miracles that the high God has done for me. His miracles are staggering. His wonders are surprising. His kingdom lasts and lasts. His sovereign rule goes on forever. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at home taking it easy in my palace without a care in the world. But as I was stretching out on my bed, I had a dream and it scared me, a nightmare that shook me. I sent for all the wise men of Babylon so that they could come and interpret the dream for me. When they were all assembled, magicians, enchanters, fortune tellers, witches, I told them the dream. None could tell me what it meant. Here the king is asking everybody he could find for help. He is going through the best his world can offer. But he still does not find relief. We have people that come into our life that way. Individuals simply seeking answers. Individuals seeking direction. Now, the good part about that is that the very direction and the answers they seek is embedded within the words of our testimony. The unfortunate part, though, is that the words of our testimony are trapped behind the bars of our teeth. And some of us refuse to let them out. Some of us have the words of our stories trapped behind the bars of our teeth, and we refuse to let those stories out. Even though those stories have power to change, to alter, to direct, to instruct, to encourage, to motivate, we still remain quiet. Verse 6 again, Nebuchadnezzar says, and I sent for all the wise men of Babylon so that they could interpret the dream for me. When they were all assembled, magicians, enchanters, fortune tellers, witches, I told them the dream. None could tell me what it meant. Verse 8 begins, and then Daniel came in. You can put your name in there. Hey, and then Benjamin came in. And then Greta came in. And then Janice came in. And then Pastor Grace came in. And then Angela came in. And then Sarah came in. And then Vinny came in. And then Michael came in. And put your name in there. There are people seeking answers and direction. And the words of your testimony has exactly what they need. But You got to come in. You got to get in the game. You can't keep your testimony. Remember, you might have said you can't tell nobody, but you just can't keep that thing to yourself. Hey, it should be like a fire. Shut up in your bones. You got to tell somebody. Why? Because you can't keep power contained. It said, and then Daniel came in. His Babylonian name is Belteshazzar, named after my God, a man full of the divine Holy Spirit. I told him my dream. And of course, which we'll get to later, he answered the dream. He told him what it meant. There are people in this world, family, whose lives are upside down. And all they need is for you to come in. There are people in this world who need answers and direction. And all those people need is for you and I to come in. Now, they don't need to fake you. They don't need the religious you. They don't need that my life has always been this good you. They need the real you. They need the you coming in there, strutting and just strutting. That's the word I want. Strutting with your testimony. Wearing your testimony proud. That's the you they need. Coming in there with your testimony. Willing to share with them what God has done. Coming in there. Voicing to them in their time of need, in their time of struggle, letting them know, listen, my life ain't always been this good, but God. My marriage ain't always been this good, but God. My business has not always been run this well, but God. My finances have not always been this well managed, but God. Whatever you going through, whatever is happening in your life, I may not have the exact answer for you, but I got a testimony that can show you evidence that all you got to do is keep moving and stay with God, because at the end of the day, he will do exactly what he said he's going to do. I can't be experienced with God for you, but I can sure enough be an experience with God before you. People in this world are aching to hear from you. Please don't keep them waiting too long. Because the very course of their life might depend on the words of your testimony. So let your story testify. You got to let it testify. Some of you got testimonies that the enemy hopes never see the light of day. Yeah, he gonna tell you, are you sure you want to say that? People gonna be ashamed of you. But they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of your testimony. They overcame, not by the blood of the Lamb only, but by the words of the testimonies of believers. You're going to dig up that old hurt, but they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of their testimony. Yes, it hurts to think about the child you lost. It hurts to think about what you went through. It hurts to think about what they did to you. But if you still standing, you are a walking, breathing testimony of what God can do. And don't let the enemy convince you to keep that to yourself. We're going to pump the brakes right there. This journey that you're on, This journey that we're on together to develop this uncommon common sense, this journey is not one-dimensional. The experiences that you gain from your journey with getting closer to God, those experiences will be branches capable of supporting the hopes of other people. Oh yeah, you gonna get benefit from it, but not just you alone. I appreciate so much that although you're gonna get the benefit of it, that the rest of us get the benefit as well. The benefit of hearing from you what God has done with and through you. We're going to get the benefit of hearing your story testify. And we'll pick up there next time. Let's pray.
We pray that today's message was a blessing to you. If you would like to help us further expand the vision, simply text the word GiveRTM to the number 41444 or visit us online at www.revealingtruth.org. Now remember, Jesus loves you.